Hello everyone and welcome to the Gun Cave. It's great to have you here. In this trip report, we're going to talk about an extremely high dose of LSD. This trip report comes from Chex Mexi on the Trip Reports Reddit. So let's hop on into it. It started at about 9:30 p.m. when I dosed. I had 3 3/4 tabs, each one about 250 UG. I got home around 9:15 and told my roommate, "Hey, I'm gonna trip tonight. Would you wanna drive me around town while I'm tripping?" He agrees to do so, seemingly happy about it. I put the entire strip of 3 3/4 tabs into my mouth, a total of about 900 UG, my largest dose ever, and waited until they were soft enough to swallow. The strange thing was how fast it started to hit. It wasn't even 15 minutes later and my heart began to bump faster, my teeth started to grate, and my eyes became complete saucers. I'm sitting at the kitchen counter on a bar stool while it's hitting. Driver roommate asks me a question, but I have no clue what the fuck was asked. So naturally, instead of answering the question, I just start laughing. And I say, "I think I'm ready to go on that ride now." So he says, "Alright, bet, let me get ready." So I go into my room while he's getting dressed and I put on my oversized rainbow tie-dye mushroom t-shirt, some very baggy sweatpants, and my blue suede moccasins. I slap my Team Sesh beanie on and make my way to the driver's room. I remember at this point, no visuals had started yet, but the euphoria had fully kicked in. I felt amazing, just overall happy and joyous that I was going to be riding around town at night while tripping. Driver lent me his super comfy sweater, and I was all set. We walked out of the house, my cigarettes and phone in hand, and I got into the driver's car. At this point, still no visuals, but I was really feeling it body-wise. I was so comfy and my speech was slurring due to my teeth feeling the need to grind, so I just kept chewing on the side of my cheek. The drive around town was amazing. We went in a huge circle a few times, a lot of neon signs. There was this motel that was rainbow colored. Each individual hotel room had a rainbow LED light outside of each door. The colors blend together and all the neon lights were so bright and wonderful. I was having a lovely time. I remember we drove back to the house for Driver to get his jacket because it had started to rain slightly. I remember our other roommate coming outside due to us waking him up by accident. He was standing on the porch and I stood up outside of the car. I was running around in circles with my arm out almost in a tribal dance sort of way, prancing or jumping in circles while looking at the sky. Because the song that had came on my phone was sort of like a chant. I don't remember what song exactly. I just remember doing this tribal dance instinctively, and then the driver came back out. I looked at the porch and saw the other roommate. His face had morphed into what looked like a sad blobfish or like a sad pug. I didn't like that, so I got back in the car. Driver got in the car and we drove to the downtown area and parked at the nearby Dash-In. By this point, it was about 10 or 11 p.m. I remember being very chipper and energetic at first, but then we came across an old, still active railroad that goes through the middle of downtown. We had passed a few people, and with the way I was acting, I can imagine we were the scary ones. I was yelling and laughing, completely and utterly bonkers by this point. I had just recently shaved my head too, so I can imagine I looked like some kind of fucking junkie, which is what I started to think about. But at the time, I was able to keep the thought out of my head for the most part. I got really tired and the trip started to die down, which was disappointing, but Driver was like, "You want to walk down by the railroad?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah." But as soon as we stepped on, we looked down and I saw a guy on the tracks. I asked Driver, "Yo, you guys see that guy too?" And he said, "Yes, you still want to walk down?" The sight of this man was enough to make my stomach twist. I said, "Nah man, let's go home." So we drove back to the house. At first I was like, "Hey man, I think I want to stay outside. I'm really liking the feeling of the air." Driver responds, "That's cool, man. You want to go inside and see the rainbow lights in my room first?" And I was thinking, I've already seen those lights while tripping, but I guess they do look pretty cool. So I agreed. We walked inside and everything was wavy by this point. The whole world was melting. I definitely hadn't reached my peak yet, and even though I hadn't reached my peak yet, I was still wobbly. And I was walking like a spider, legs up high, back hunched. I was goofy for sure. The rainbow LED lights were very interesting. The ceiling fans going at full speed was throwing the color all around the room. Then we started watching TV because Driver told me to sit in the bungee cord chair that he had in his room. It didn't really feel any different than usual, but then the weighted blanket was put on me by the driver. That was nice. I don't remember what we watched at first, but I remember thinking, the trip is dying. Why? Am I on the come down already? I'm gonna smoke some weed. So I got up and I walked to my room, grabbed my bong and weed, and strided back to the driver's room and sat back down. I smoked 2 full bowls, and this is when things get crazy. After smoking, immediately the visuals kicked up more than they ever have for me. Everything was wavy, melting, or shifting in some way. I suddenly started to feel on edge, thinking about my life, how fucked up everything was, and I'm just here tripping acid and smoking weed. Who would I become? Back in May, I had lost everything. My partner, my home, my car at the time, a lot of friends. I felt as if I had nothing. My current situation is a restart on my life. I just kept thinking about, this is where you ended up? This is what you're doing? 6 months ago, you said that 14-year-old you would think you're the coolest person in the world. What would he think of you now? And I kept thinking about that, about how I had fallen and how deep I was in the great pit of despair. Suddenly Driver said, "Yo, I read that a good thing to watch while on LSD is a show called Planet Earth. You want to watch it?" And I was like, "Sure, man, put that shit on," in all hopes it would get my mind off the current fixation. The show began and I was immediately sucked in. Nothing made sense. The animals I looked at were alien to me. The beautiful landscapes they show were morphed into giant feminine bodies that made up the earth. I can't even put it into words how mesmerized I was by what I was seeing. The colors and the clarity of the camera, the natural essence of the planet Earth. It was almost too much. I could feel myself getting overstimulated. But when the camera was switched, and with tears rolling down my face, I looked at the driver and said, "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, man. What the fuck is this?" And he said, "It's planet Earth, man. You want me to turn it off? Is it freaking you out?" And to be honest, it definitely was. None of what the narrator said was making any sense. It all sounded weird, like it was directly to me, and it was as if the narrator knew I was tripping and was purposefully saying fucked up things to get me to say, "Yo, what the fuck is this shit, man? It's fucking with me." The driver asks again, "You want me to turn it off?" And I said, "Nah, man, it's crazy, but it's a journey. I'm kind of liking it." And then a part in a tundra showed up, and it showed a wildcat eating a fish. The narrator said something during this part that made absolutely no sense to me at the time. One last time I said, "Dude, seriously, what the fuck is this shit? It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know what we're watching." So the driver turned it off and I lay down on the floor. He covered me up with a weighted blanket and suddenly he looked like a cartoon character. He came up to me while I was laying down and said, "Alright, want me to make you some tea?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds nice." While alone in the room, I was talking to myself, creating scenarios that I thought were real, then realizing I was alone, tripping acid in Driver's room. That cycle went on for what felt like an eternity. I had lost all sense of myself. My consciousness was afloat like a little kid letting go of a balloon. It was as if I was no longer in my body, but traveling through dimensions and continuously shooting back to this one. But it wasn't me. I was pure consciousness, concentrated, unrecognized consciousness afloat in the cosmos. I had experienced an ego death. Every time I came to, I got scared, thinking, "Oh God, am I ever going to come back for good? Am I ever going to be me again?" Still foolishly clinging on to my present identity rather than letting my mind drift into nothingness. Though, as much as I struggled to stay here, it was no use. My mind was gone and I had no idea until after I had returned. Driver comes back into the room and I sit up to accept the tea. My mind's still in between worlds. I sip the tea and it's very, very sweet. He made me a chai tea. I don't like sweet tea, but I was thankful nonetheless. At this point, we sat in silence. My consciousness still stretched beyond comprehension. Completely and utterly destroyed mentally. I could tell if the situation was awkward, so I laid back down and Driver put on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album. We listened to the whole thing and I could hear secret messages within each song. I was being controlled by the notes, swayed by the swells of music, and influenced by these secret tones and voices within the songs. My ego slips away again, but this time I don't fight it. The entire album felt like years. I was floating in space, saying fantastic things that I couldn't even begin to describe to you. Spectacular colors, galactic bodies made of stars, masterpieces seemingly crafted by God itself. I felt as if I was in heaven. It was so frightening yet so beautiful. Physically, I was producing tears yet not crying, mumbling to myself nonsensical gibberish, slowly rocking my head to the beat of each song, my hands moving on their own in the air above me. As the album ended, I was violently being shot back to Earth into my own body. All I could hear was drivers saying, "Alright, man, album's over," and I said, "Oh, sick. Think I'm gonna finish my trip in my room." So he said goodnight, and I slowly made my way to my room, my brain throbbing and buzzing from what I had just experienced. It had to be around 1 a.m. by this point. My other roommate was in the kitchen. The door to my room is in the kitchen, and he looked at me and said, "Hey, you doing alright?" I guess what had just happened was written all over my face. I responded, "I'm alright. Not really, but I'll be fine. Thank you, and good night." I shut the door while he was responding to me. I got into my room and knew that I needed to end this. I couldn't take much more. I was mainly excited because I was alone. I didn't need to worry about anyone judging me or anything going wrong. I was in my own space, able to trip freely. I hadn't thought about my ego returning, though. I began to judge myself, asking myself over and over again, "What the fuck are you doing, man? Is this really what your life has come to? Just tripping and smoking weed all the time?" I hated thinking about these things because of what I had just experienced. I had just attained nothingness, complete and utter loss of identity, and now that it's all back, all I can think of is the negatives. Fuck this, man. So I jumped on the computer, which is hooked up to my 55-inch TV. I put on a video of some Native American pan flute music playing over a recording of a lake reflecting some trees, and leaves floating over the water. I began to see this video as everything other than what it actually was. I forgot what I was watching. It started to look like a million synapses firing. The reflection of the light on the water became static, electronic outlines of naked female bodies and these sexual poses, completely still and very detailed, yet spinning as if on an axis. Then below the leaves, the light seemingly was their bodies. I stared at this for quite some time, scenarios and thoughts in and out of my head so fast that I couldn't focus on a single thought. I realized I need to turn off the fucking TV and turn out the lights. So I did. I don't have the TV remote anymore, so I gotta get up and press the power button on the TV itself. I looked down at the floor of my room, and right before I turned off the TV, I saw hundreds of little beetles crawling around on the floor. I then squeezed my eyes shut and said, "I can't fucking do this," and then got in bed. My room was completely pitch black. It was about 2:30 a.m. now. As I laid down, my thoughts raced. I kept having to shake my head, getting more and more anxious as time went on. My face sweating, my body aching, my mind racing. I could still hear the secret tones of Dark Side of the Moon. I kept thinking, I'm gonna be stuck like this. I'm never gonna be able to think straight again. This can't be happening. What the hell is going on? I don't remember falling asleep, but I do remember waking up and seeing the early morning sun peek through my window. My room was silent other than my window AC unit running, and it just felt sad. My ego was just continuously judging me, telling me I was a loser, reminding me of my stress and my worries. I'm better now, but this trip definitely showed me a lot of things. Taught me more than ever. Allowed me to face my ego, lose my ego, and then regain it. Somehow, since the trip, defeat my inner judgment. Recognizing that I'm a more than worthwhile being. Able to do what I want and do what makes me happy. Even if it doesn't